Well, let's get into our main discussion for this evening. Another miner has been brought to the surface at a disused mine in Stilfontein in the northwest. He came up with a letter requesting tobacco and more food items to be sent underground. 8 bodies have so far been retrieved by community volunteers. Our very own reporter, Ziniko Mhlaba, joins us live with an update. Ziniko, good evening to you. And thank you so much for availing yourself for this update. I know that you've been watching things very closely there in Stilfontein, and you've got a lot that you're hearing from the community and certainly from police. But give us the latest, some of the key events that took place perhaps today.
Good evening, Naledi. Yes, indeed, we've been following the story since it started. And of course, I can say we are on week 4 as far as the official operations are concerned at Shaft 11 in Stilfontein. So the key things that came out of today's operation was the fact that 2 more people were retrieved safely. They were in good spirit in terms of the general state psychologically, but there were some who had some health concerns, and of course, Health Emergency Management Service had to be called in to attend and evaluate all those individuals who came out today. We started a bit late due to various reasons, which I think can be better explained by community leaders themselves who deal with the volunteers themselves on a daily basis in terms of mobilizing them in the morning from various households in Kuma, which is a township which is not far from Shaft 11. But eventually they got to the scene. They swiftly started with their operations under very scorching heat. At some point I looked at the temperatures. We're looking at 35 degrees Celsius at the time when they started, but within an hour they managed to ensure that one individual, the first individual that is, was retrieved without any issues in terms of injuries or any noticeable or concerning health issues. However, that individual who came onto the surface first had a letter which was attached to him, and of course the letter was written in Xhosa. One of the community members or community activists was available immediately to give us some content and insights into what was written in that letter. So let's take a listen to this gentleman who read the letter for us, and he was reading that letter in Xhosa.
Molweni botata niphilile, sicela ugwayi we-BP please nokutya kuphelile. Bacela loo nto namhlanje, noko ayikho imayonnaise namhlanje, bacela ugwayi ne-BP.
All right, so just some of the demands that are being made there in that letter, where they're asking for food products, but also asking for tobacco products, which is particularly interesting, right? So the likes of BB tobacco. I mean, what is the response from authorities when they see that letter making that request?
So the authorities, I can say to some extent, felt as if their argument throughout these operations were spot on in terms of stating that the illegal miners underground are not necessarily trapped, and they have the ability, they have the capacity to come out. So that's what police have been saying, specifically the Minister of Police, Mr. Senzo Mchunu, but also General Masemola, who's the police commissioner. However, the reality on the ground, as we've seen before, especially when it comes to that Shaft 11, I don't think it's practical for any individuals to come onto the surface independently without any assistance, whether from the rescue experts or from the community members themselves who have been volunteering their services. So for me, from what I've seen and from the experience that I've seen on the ground, even those who are retrieving these bodies from underground, they're doing that under very difficult conditions, because we're talking about a very deep hole. And of course, for an individual to be able to climb onto the walls of that hole independently, it is practically impossible. But looking at how the volunteers themselves, use that rope and how they are trying to, when they pull out that rope, it takes a bit of a time. It takes about 45 minutes at least, and that's the fastest they can be able to retrieve a body. However, if there are delays or if whatever is being pulled onto the surface is heavy, it takes them an hour. So that's the reality on the ground. However, these letters and these requests, have also raised some concerns, have raised some issues and questions whether, the state might have a case or valid point point when they say there are people who are not willing to come out. And of course, we've seen committee members themselves, especially committee leaders who received the letter yesterday, which trended. They did say that, they are not accepting and they're not going to accede to those requests. And of course, they felt as if they're being undermined by the illegal miners underground because they are trying their level best, according to them, to assist those who want to come out. However, it's clearly, it is clear that there are those who are really, enjoying themselves underground, and hence now this position that has been taken by committee leaders in terms of saying we're going to draw the line, we're going to focus on individuals who want to come out. However, in the public domain, in the public eye, and what we've seen, it seems as if indeed these letters and these requests, since they started yesterday, it doesn't seem as if the miners underground are actually getting the message from their own leaders who have been trying to assist them in terms of facilitating the communication between the state and the illegal miners underground. So that's where the position of those leaders are, from what they've been telling us and the attitude they've been showing us. But also government has been very, very strong on their position, saying that as much as we understand that there are people who are saying that there's a crisis that's happening underground, these letters seem to be proving our point as police. So that's where things are. So it depends on who you talk to and when and where are you talking to those individuals. Because on the ground, we do engage with police officers. Some of them even shared that video that was cut from the interview we had with the community leader, who really took a very strong stance against those demands, which were made by the illegal miners underground yesterday.
Yeah, well, this is what we're going to do, Ziniko. We're actually going to, in the next conversation with our panel, actually bring up some of those letters that have come up in recent days and get some, thoughts from community leaders and also some legal minds on this one. One of them, of course, being the Society for the Protection of Our Constitution. But Ziniko Mhlaba is, of course, our reporter, keeping a close eye for us on things as they unfold in Stilfontein. And he continues to give us that coverage here on Channel 405. So stay with us over the days that come for those updates.